So today, for what we're going to do is cover some of the new features that are available in LX 842. But before we get into specifically what's new, I think it's probably good to kind of recap what LX 842 is. And then, well, for the agenda today, actually, we're gonna go through what is 842, some major changes you should be aware of in LX 84 base, as well as the things that came out with 842 when it went GA, and then really what's new with 842 since we released it. So again, to start off, really want to make sure everybody understands foundationally what 842 is. So 842 is really built on our 8.4 GA release that came out several years ago. And so this is what we call a feature pack strategy, right? Where we release a foundational level with database changes. And then from there, we do feature packs on top of that enable new functionality. And it's a net change, meaning that with 8.4.1, when we released it, it really is only those objects that change to support new features in 8.4.1 and things that enabled or patches for any defects were all bundled into that 8.4.1 feature pack release. And then, of course, after that, we had 8.4.2, which again is a continuation. It's a net change of everything that happened since 8.4.0 and 8.4.1. And then where we are today with 8.4.2, with things that we've released as enhancements since 8.4.2 went GA. So if you're an 8.4.1 customer and you wanted to go to 8.4.2, that means you would install 8.4.2 and then get the latest patches from Infor support that have come out since 8.4.2 went GA, which would include those enhancements as well as those any defects that have occurred. If you're on, let's say, 8.3 or 8.2 and you're upgrading to 8.4, you would install 8.4 at the foundation. You could skip 8.4.1 because 8.4.2 will include everything since 8.4.0. And then you would again contact support to make sure you get the latest beamers. That includes all of the enhancements and new features since 8.4 went GA, or since 8.4.2 went GA, I should say. So, this is something we're going to continue to build on. So at some point there will be an 8.4.3, but for now, as much as we can, we want to deliver enhancements to 8.4.2. And as long as we can do that in a non-disruptive way, we believe that's beneficial for our customers going forward. So that is what 8.4.2 is today. Again, built on the 8.4 foundation. 8.4.2 feature pack then includes all the changes since 8.4 went GA. And then more recently, you would want to, just like anything, get a beamer explosion from support that will give you everything that happened since it went GA. So let's step back and look at 8.4.0 a little bit to understand specifically what that means in terms of changes that you need to be aware of if you're coming from an older version of BPIX, or even for that matter, 8.3 LX as well. So first off, significant database changes. Now, again, the table names haven't changed. The table structures really haven't changed, but we did expand a lot of the fields in the database. So that was done to support new capabilities, but also to support, I should say, to support a major enterprise, right? So if you are running out of certain numbers because of it, they're going to roll over, such as some of the transactional numbers that we have in our system, this database change was done to support that. New files to support new capabilities. So we've also introduced a lot of new tables. Now, again, those new tables don't really have an impact to you in terms of the need to when you upgrade, there's nothing to convert, right? So those are just new tables there to support new functionality. And then more recently, or more importantly, probably aware of this fact that we switched from from a DDS database structure to a DDL, right, to support SQL database and DB2. And that's really been done for a number of reasons, right? It's really IBM's strategy is to move everything to DDL for a number of reasons, right? It provides additional flexibility, but it also performs and scales better. So that is something to be aware of too if you're upgrading from 8.4. So be aware of those database changes. They're documented in the release notes, but certainly you do want to make sure that excuse me for a second. It looks like there's a problem with the webinar. Sorry, let me continue. So, the important thing there, though, that our files are still largely the same thing, right? If we think about like the item master, it's still the IAM. There's a new physical file over the IAM called IAMP, but structured the same way as the IAM, and the IAM still resides as a logical file in the 8.4 database. So if you have questions about that, feel free to engage us, and we can explain that in more detail. Then, of course, there's a lot of new core features, right? So new supply chain, manufacturing, finance, those are always things that we're investing in a release to improve the core functionality of the application. Some of those things, to give you an example, right? Better ways of managing order holds. We've added business unit security. So if you think back to 8.3.5, where we introduced role-based security, that was to control what applications a user would get into based on the role that they're in. Business unit security is kind of taking that the other direction, right? When we think about SYS600, you had what applications they get into, but then you also had what companies, what facilities, what warehouses, what ledgers and books. So this business unit security is to then identify, based on the unit that they work in, what of those types of things they can get into from, like I said, from an entity standpoint. And then also user provisioning. We know there's a lot of configuration instead of adding users. So we've done some things there between the role-based security, the business unit security, but also a way of provisioning users to make that more effective. And then, of course, see the release notes for a lot of the details here. We're not going to get into all those features today, but those release notes are available for you to get more details. And then lastly, probably the biggest change we've done in quite some time is using IDF for maintaining some critical data in the LX application. So for a long time, IDF has primarily been used for inquiries, but it is a complete architecture allowing us to develop not just inquiries, but transactions and data management all within that IDF architecture. So in 8.4, one of the key things to know is some of the master data, such as customers, vendors, items, item facility, are now managed in the IDF application. Again, same table that is still being controlled to create an item is still the IAM. Same with the RCM and AVM. But we're just changing the user interface, and we've retired those 100-level programs that provided that function historically. And there's a number of reasons for that. I'll get into that in a minute. But then again, know that when we built this 8.4, these database changes that we did was done to provide a foundation for future feature packs. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today, right? Is what are those future feature packs? What have we delivered in them, and what are we delivering going forward? So just to kind of get a little bit more into some of the key database changes, I just want to put this list up here. We'll provide the presentation to everybody afterwards, so you have this. But these are the fields that we have expanded across the LX application. So when you look at some of these things like company number, obviously company number is throughout the application in a lot of places. We expanded it from 2 characters to 3 because we have some customers that have more than 99 companies. And in doing so, that company number has a lot of impact across the application. So a lot of tables being expanded to for a 3-digit company number. You also see like item class was another one. We heard a lot of people wanting that field to be expanded. But then you've also got a lot of your numbers, like draft numbers and some of your quote numbers and things like that, RMA numbers that we expanded as well, because those are things, as well as purchase order number, that being a big one there, that people wanted expanded so they didn't have to roll that number over as they did more transactions. So this list is, again, will be provided to you, and for you to analyze the impact that it may have if you were to do an 8.4 upgrade. And I did want to talk a little bit more about the benefits of using IDF for master data. We've talked about this a lot in the past, but I don't think I think it's something that we can continue to reiterate because I think it's that important. First off, something called templates. A template is that opportunity to, have a different process for different types of items. If we think about INV 100 in the traditional sense, you had the same screens pop up for a finished good item as a raw material item, as a work in process item. And this gives you the ability to define different processes, not just even for the type of item it is, raw material or finished good, but maybe even what it is, right? So you may have different item classes for finished goods. With that, you may want to have different characteristics or different data points that you want to collect based on that. So it allows you to build a very specific process and a way of defining data based on the type of record it is you're creating. Secondly, improve security, right? So not only, traditionally, if you got into the item master, you had complete access to the item master. Now this gives you the ability to secure it by field if you want. So you have the opportunity to say what fields some people are allowed to edit, see, create, and make that more role-based for one thing. But also allows you to have what we call content security, which means you can secure it maybe by item class, right? So as a user, you can see all items maybe, but you can only maintain items that have a particular item class or item type. Same could be done with customers, right? That you would maybe allow certain people to maintain certain customers, but not others. Maybe that's on salesperson, maybe that's on profit center, maybe it's on customer type. So you have that ability to really get very finite in your security for the master data. You also have ability to monitor and track history, right? So through that maintenance of that record, we take a snapshot of before and after. So you have the ability to report on master data changes, who changed it, when, what it was before, and what it looked like afterwards. There's some mass change capabilities as well. So instead, if you have to, maybe a salesperson leaves the company and you want to reassign a bunch of customers to a new salesperson, you could have done that historically with SQL, which comes with inherent risks. Now you have the ability to do that through a mass change function within IDF. And then probably the most important thing is the ability to extend it indefinitely. There is no limit to the number of attributes with the IDF architecture that an item could have, for instance, or a customer or vendor. So you can use your own extension tables if you have them, or our extension tables that we delivered with 8.3 to store that additional content. But what you'll have now is the opportunity to define it all in a single process, right? So, this is just to kind of illustrate what that looks like with having a template for one. So you're going to see here that we've got a template. In this case, I'm defining a new item and it happens to be wire. So as a result, I can now have attributes very specific to wire that I am populating when creating this new item. And none of these attributes here on the right, on the ones on the left, are all standard fields in the item master. But these ones on the right are all in an extension table. And you'll see I have a nice user interface to be able to select those things that are specific to wire in terms of the attributes, gauge, color, etc., and populate all that in a single instance. And then again, this is a case where if I had a different template that was maybe not for wire, but a different type of product, I could potentially get different attributes that I would have to enter because of the different item type. So that's to kind of just give you a really high overview of some of the capabilities that the master data management and IDF provides. It is, there's a lot to discuss here. And if you haven't been introduced to this, please contact me and we can delve into this in more detail so you understand the benefits that it provides, because it can be very transformative to how you use LX going forward. Okay, so that is the key things to know in terms of big changes to 8.4 and the foundation of 8.4. Again, it's the database changes. It is the master data management and IDF. Those are the things that are really the most things that you need to be considerate of if you're coming from an older version of LX or BPIX. So let's talk about some of the key 8.4 features that came out when 8.4.2 went GA. So 8.4.2 went GA about a year and a half ago. Or no, a little bit less than that. And when we did that, we said, hey, once it comes out, we want to deliver future enhancements on 8.4.2 as beamers in a way that we can do it that won't be disruptive, so people can consume those enhancements as they want. But before we go into those, I do want to focus on a couple of key things in 8.4.2 to begin with. So 8.4.2 GA release, we did some things to improve audit and traceability of the application. Also, the ability to have more operational control. We've also done things with new IDF objects. So when we delivered IDF inquiries years and years ago, we went pretty much across all key business functions of the application, but we did skip some. And for better for worse, we realized we should have done those and have now done quotes, quote lines, RMIAs, and RMA lines. So those are new IDF objects that are available in the 8.4.2 release. And then also focus on improving the web user interface. So obviously we are rewriting some applications in the IDF architecture, but we still traditionally depend on WebTop to emulate the traditional screens. In some cases, the way that those traditional screens were developed, they don't emulate as well in WebTop as they could. And it limits the ability for WebTop to really use some of the advanced features that take it beyond being a screen scraper. So we're making changes to those programs to make those better for a web user interface. And then lastly, of course, we always have some functional changes to supply chain, manufacturing, and finance. So I'll step through a couple of key things, right? Again, in 8.4.2, when 8.4.2 went GA, these are functions that would be available in that. User activity logging is one of those things. Provides the ability for you to log critical functions in the application. Now, out of the box, we limited the number of things that we actually log, but if there are other types of transactions that you want to create logging for, please reach out to us and we can see how we can activate that. But the architecture is there for us to log certain activities that you want to make sure you have a history of beyond what we do in IDF. User provisioning, I mentioned that before. We want to make sure that it's easier to add users, especially with the tech stack. When we look at the IBMI tech stack with System-I Workspace, and if you're using Infor OS as well, we want to make that user provisioning to be easier. So there's some beamers there we've done to make that more user-friendly and more capable. We've added some things to security for Word 700, so you can limit the types of order classes or types users can use. And then we've added action key security to Word 700, right? So this is a big thing. It's a simple thing for us to do, and I want to remind customers of the opportunity for this because it's not everywhere in the application. But I mentioned about in IDF and why we like IDF because it really allows us to build a very comprehensive security model around any particular process. But for even our traditional programs that we still use, we can improve the security in those areas through what we call action code security, right, and function key security. So that means that on a given screen, what actions can the user take, what functions can the user access, and we never did that for Word 700 after all these years, right? And so more recently, we did add that security to Word 700 through where you implement that is in group maintenance and Sys 603. And if you see other opportunities for that, raise an enhancement request, right? This is, if you see someplace that you wish we had better security and a user you want user to be able to maybe, let's say, create something but not delete it, or create something but not revise it, or be able to take this function key that provides visibility or access to something that you don't want them to. That is a great example of where we can then implement this action key security like we did for Word 700 and a lot of other areas of the application. And I did talk about this already, at a high level in the screens as we went through them, about the new IDF objects that came out in 842 when it went GA, just to kind of give you a little bit more visibility into what that means. So for quote unquote line entry, it required us to build 35 new objects, right? Because if we think about when we look at a quote, there's a lot of fields that have a code or a value, and that value alone may not tell you what you need to know, and you want to drill into that code to see what it means. So when we talk about related objects, that's what we're doing, right? When there's a value somewhere and you want to see what my choices are, or what that code means, we provide navigation to see the detail of what that is, and that's through those related objects. We haven't taken OR 300 away for quota inquiry, but we really are trying to make sure that we're providing this functionality in IDF as a modern option to these kind of legacy program like OR 300 B2. And the same is true with RMAs, right? Same concept. Again, 12 new objects needed to support that. And then also the fact that that we also did the line level records, right? So as well as the quotes like EQL and ERL. The importance of that is having a list of quotes or RMAs is great, but sometimes you want the list of the lines, right? Because maybe you're looking for quotes by item number, and you want to see all the quotes for a particular item, or all the RMAs for a particular item. So this gives you the ability, by building an object over the line level as well, you now can have a list of all of those RMA lines or quote lines that you can manage however you wish. And then we did something new here in 842 that we haven't done. Again, trying to make sure we expose all the IDF capability to our customers, right? And we've been very tactical about where we do that and why we do it. So again, IDF came out as an inquiry tool. We've introduced master data management to kind of get that out there. One of the other things we can do is what we call a host code job. And this is how we can process a set of records from IDF. And that is something I think that can provide a lot of value in other places, right? So thinking about where you have a list of data, maybe you want to do something with that list. Maybe you want to ship those orders. Maybe you want to invoice those orders. That gives you, this host code job is a way of doing that in a different way than the traditional green screen programs where you have a rigid filter. The value of it is, here you're looking at a list of orders in IDF. And if it's a list of orders in IDF, and I'm concerned about holds, I can build a view and a subset. And we did that. We built a view and a subset that is very specific to holds. So you're seeing that, that there's a subset or in a view that is doing that. So I have very hold specific information by record. And you now have the option to say, I want to release a hold from IDF. And the power of this is, like, this list, you can filter and subset it any way that you want. And when you do that, you can see now that you have this option to, what do I want to release? Do I want to work with the subset that I've defined? Do I want to do it by record? But this allows you to manage that prior list any way that you want. And then when you do that host code job, decide what do you want to do with it, the type of holds you want to remove, and process. So I think this is just an area that we want to make sure customers understand the capabilities of the IDF architecture, and where we can use it to streamline processes to make them more efficient. I think this is a really good use case, but I think as you get exposed to this as customers, you're going to think of others, and I am all ears to hear that from our customers, to think about where else we could use this type of capability to streamline processes. And then if I go on to the next slide, just here are some other features that were in 842 when it went GA, as I mentioned this before, is improving the green screen design so that we can better emulate something in WebTop. So these 510 programs were always kind of had a poor user experience. And, so again, we made some changes. Again, here you don't see a big improvement. But when you apply a grid to it, Now you have a better user experience where you see all of those records in a grid. Now you can sort and filter them in more detail, right? So there are some places we've introduced WebTop 4.8 last year where we can take a subfile and put a grid over it to build a better user experience. There were some programs like those 510 programs where the way they were architected didn't necessarily build a good user experience. So we're improving those as we see them. Okay, so that kind of catches us up to where we are after 8.4.2 went GA. So everything you've seen today is in so far is what, if you download 8.4.2 and install it, these are the features that we've done at a high level. Not every feature, but some of the big things that we did in 8.4.2 as it went GA. So now we'll talk about what's new in 8.4.2 since it went GA. And so just one thing I want to make sure people are aware of is there's a document out there that has all of this content. So there's a link. Again, we'll share this presentation with everybody later today. And you're going to see that there is a link in it to get to what we call 8.4.2 release notes post-GA. Post-GA being the key thing. There's two 8.4.2 release notes. There's the 8.4.2 release notes for what we packaged on GA date. And then this is a living document that contains every enhancement that we've done since it was released. And there's a KB article there that you want to pay attention to that will get you to all the release notes related to LX from 8.3.0 forward to give you access to all the release notes. So let's talk about recent developments. Then we've delivered. These are all since Inforum, right? So we did a presentation at Inforum about things that we delivered in 8.4.2 after it went GA, and this is really focused on now. I said Inforum, I meant Empower. Excuse me. These are the things that we've done. Some of the major things we've done since 8.4.2 in 8.4.2 since our Empower last September. So another panel redesign, right? Pro 150 just had a lot of rigidness in it. Really only showed 5 records at a time. So we redesigned that to use 27 by 132. And now when you apply a grid on it, it really allows you to have ability to see all the Pro 150 records and sort it, filter it any way that you want. So this is what it looked like in green screen before the redesign. Again, this is now what it looks like in green screen after the redesign. And our intent isn't for you to use green screen. It's the fact that sometimes we have to re-architect the green screen to then provide this type of user experience in WebTop. And so again, the power of this is, again, in the green screen, I can only sort and filter on certain values. Here, I can sort and filter really on any value. Just you have to remind yourself that you need to make sure that all records are being loaded into the subfile when you build your grid. And we can, and once you do that, now you have this ability to really manage this list of Pro 150 records much more effectively. So again, there's times where we're going to redesign the green screen really for the purpose of making sure that we can provide better capability in WebTop. The next one I want to cover is really a new IDF business object for planned and firm planned orders. And we built this over the KFP file. Again, I said KFP, you'll notice it says KFPP. Again, going back to what I said earlier about database changes, the new physical file for the KFP is the KFPP. It is identical to the KFP historically, and the KFP still exists, but it exists as a logical where the KFPP is the actual physical now. So if you've been using the KFP file, that's not an issue. You can continue to use it, but I thought I'd better call that out because people probably thought I had a typo there. But in fact, the planned order file is the KFPP now. So we built this IDF object over the KFPP, and it is a comprehensive application. It allows you to filter and sort planned and firm planned orders. Also, one of the things in there is the action message, right? Is this need to be expedited or whatever that is? You have the ability to filter on that. It supports navigation to a lot of the related things, right? So if you're looking at a firm plan order and you want to go look at the bill of material for it or something like that, you can easily navigate to that. We provide a lot of drill backs also to other things like all these MRP applications, and it is secured by facility. So you will not have access to orders that are not for a facility that you're authorized to. So it really does provide, as a benefit, it really provides a streamlined and intuitive way for everybody to see critical manufacturing data. And so just to kind of give you a visual of what that looks like. So here it is. And you'll notice a couple of things like just, I have this ability now to just filter these by any of the particular action messages that I may need to take against that. We also have this navigation that you can use to go to different things or then drill into it and get to all the detail for that KFP record. So that's a nice object that we thought would benefit people. We're doing more work in this area. We're not done yet, but we did want to get this delivered, and I'll explain in a bit what we're continuing to do in this area to provide more capability in the future. And then another recent enhancement is we've provided an indented bill of materials in IDF. So historically, there's always been a bill of material in IDF, but it was only one level deep. So if you had a parent and you would see the component items, but you wouldn't see the children of the components. So this is a graphical view of all components and lower level components for parent item. It's an alternative to BOM 300 and then a bill of material. So again, we hope people start using this instead of the green screen to look at indented bills. And in a lot of ways, it's far better. One of the things is it'll let you see all bills of materials at the same time. So in BOM 300, there's a record for each facility. If you've got different facilities and manufacturing methods, you have a record for every manufacturing method and every facility. This allows you to see all of them at once. You can also expand or collapse it as you need to, and you can copy it, right? So we provided this overview definition. You can copy it just like anything in IDF. You can copy what we provide and tweak it however you want. As an example, you could say, by definition, the way that we built it, it's all collapsed. And you need to expand all those layers as you look at it. But you can change it to make it expand when you open it, right? So that you have it expanded. You can also change the content of each node. And node is, again, the layers that we have. You'll see that you can change the content of those nodes as well. So, a lot of benefits here, right? There's a lot of people that look at bills of materials, and having this as a graphical indented view, in my opinion, is really a big advantage. So if we look at this traditionally, again, here's BOM 300. This is what I was talking about before, right? Item A100 has multiple bills of materials for different facilities and different manufacturing method. And if I drill into one, and now I see that the bill of material for that, but again, with the green screen, there's limited depth, and this can go on for pages and pages depending on how much depth it has. So if we look at it in IDF, this is what we did. So you're going to notice there's this MDM tab has always been here. And what we've added, though, is this new card for an indented bill of material. And the card definition is, at this point, as we delivered it, is just this half screen. But again, one of the benefits of IDF is any card that we make, you can use it however you want. So for demonstration purposes, I just simply took this card and added it to my card file so that I would have a full screen view of it. And here's now you can see how it is expanded. And I am seeing all the content for every node. Again, I can collapse and expand these by using these arrows as I need to. But I'm seeing every child and the required quantity of every child, and even the inventory available for the child, right? So I can put content like that into the node if that's something I want to know. Again, that the way we built the node, that is there, but you can change the node to put in different content if you want. But we think this is a great way to see your availability of, if I was to manufacture this item today, how does it look from a raw material standpoint for all of the component items? You can also then, as an example, this I just did as a prototype, is I built another card. I put another card onto the bill of materials list object, right? So for those of you who are familiar with the split screen capability in IDF, where you have a list on one side, and as I select records, the content on the right is being updated based on the record I selected. So you can do this kind of thing as well. As I select different items or different bills of materials, I would see the bill of material as I go through the list here. So other than, those are some of the big things. There's some other smaller enhancements we've done for 842 since we were at Empower. And there's Beamer numbers with all these to kind of give you, how to download them in contact support if you want to get those. So a few enhancements here. I'm not going to get into the details of these. I guess the big thing here is that we are still committed to translating all of our tier 1 languages. So, when we delivered 842 initially, we translated all the screens, but we hadn't translated all of the help text. So now the translation for help text is available for all of our tier 1 languages that you see listed there as well. Now, there are a whole series of enhancements that came out after 842 went GA. And I'm not going to get into all of those. They're in the presentation at a high level here from a Beamer standpoint. So you have the Beamer numbers and just a high level of what they do. But I do want to remind everybody, if you want to get more details about all of the 842 enhancements that were done post GA that I didn't cover today, that were covered at Empower, you have access to the Empower presentation through this link. And this is a direct link to this document that you're seeing here. So when we think about what's new with 842, I know we're kind of breaking this up, but we only have so much time, right? So there was the stuff that we covered 6 months ago, and then there's the things I just covered now in terms of some of those new features and the new IDF objects. But if you want to get all the other ones in more detail, this PDF will provide that for you. And so just out of what you'll get, if you click on this top tab here, on this top link here, it will bring you to this screen in Work Out Loud. And if you click on the LX tab, what you will get then is a list of all the LX sessions that happened at Empower. And you will find the 842 session that we did in September. And that's this document that you will then have access to provide you more details about all of these that you see here, right? So these are things that we did in 842 that I didn't cover today, that we covered at Empower, but are since the enhancement, since 842 went GA. So you're going to see a lot of things here with a lot of Beamer numbers. So know that we are continuing to improve 842, and we'll continue to improve 842 going forward through various means. So one of the key ones I guess I do want to talk a little bit about is this one here. So when we released the IDF objects many years ago, the order inquiry in IDF had some gaps in it and some issues compared to ORD 300. So really what the focus of this was to close any gaps from ORD 300. Our goal is we are not going to decommission ORD 300 and take it away from people, but we do want to get to a point where it becomes obsolete, that everything you could do in ORD 300 can be done better in IDF. So these are some of the things that we did to enable that. So again, if you're still using ORD 300 today, the question is why? And again, this obviously only applies if you're on 8.3 or 8.4. But if you are trying to understand why that is, because we really have closed those gaps to make the IDF inquiry provide every function that ORD 300 has done. Okay, so that's where we are today. I do want to look ahead a little bit, right, in terms of other things that we're working on. I'm not going to cover everything here, but there are a few things, and anytime we talk about what we're working on, we do have a disclaimer just in case something changes our priorities and we have to shift gears. But enhancements and warranty, that's the terminology we use for everything I just talked about. 842 is a fully warranted release level, and we are enhancing it while it is, we call it enhancements and warranty. And a lot of what we do comes from customer requests. So I want to remind everybody that we have something called enhancement request system. You'll hear it referred to as ERS. There's a link here that you can click on. If you click on that link, you will come to this page here where you can then see the enhancement requests that are out there for Infor LX. You can review them, you can comment on them, and by all means, vote on it. If you see something there you think is important that would benefit this community and all of our users, give it a vote. If you don't see any value in it, also then just comment that you can either do just there's three choices. One is you disagree, one you agree, and one that you have just acknowledge that you've read it but doesn't provide necessarily any value to your business. Because even at that, I know that people have read it and have been neutral on it, right? Versus haven't read it and I really don't know. So go through these for the areas that you cover, vote on them if however you feel is appropriate. Because ultimately that's what drives what we're doing today, is what we see in the enhancement request system. So we're going to continue to do that and that's how we deliver these things. What we just saw in 842 post GA, that's how we deliver what people vote on, and we'll continue to do that. And then really some of the ones that we are working on actively in terms of new IDF objects. We heard a lot of people say that the ECM records are really hard to look at in our ECM programs. So we are in the process of developing IDF views over some of the critical ECM tables to make that visibility into those records that much easier to manage. Another thing we're working on, I mentioned before, when we talked about the firm and firm planned orders, we are also wanting to do something where we build a more dynamic view of all of these records, right? So when we think about it as KFP, but when you look at MRP 300, it's using a combination of KFP, it's FSO, HPO, FMA, et cetera, right? And building a very dynamic presentation of your manufacturing requirements. So we are designing a alternative to MRP 300 in IDF. It's a lot to do that effectively, but we feel like it's really important to give a better user experience for everybody that uses MRP 300. Again, we won't decommission MRP 300, but once this is done, that will be our focus, just like it was for, I said, with like customer order. We're not focused on OR 300. We're not going to make OR 300 any better. We want the IDF application to be the place where people go, and that's where the investment's going to be. When we get done with this, the same thing is going to be true. Our investment, we're not going to invest in MRP 300 anymore. We're going to invest in providing that capability as best we can in the IDF architecture. So those are things we're working on. I do want to just remind people the importance of using the enhancement request system. This is really your voice as a customer in terms of what we do. I mentioned a few minutes ago about voting, and sharing your ideas and commenting on things that are out here is just a great way to make sure that your voice is being heard, and that it helps me gauge what's most important to our customers and deliver a roadmap and solutions that meet our customers' needs. Then lastly, before wrapping it up, before we get to Q&A, is I do want to remind everybody, I mentioned earlier about Empower 2024, where we introduced a lot of things last year, and we're going to do that again this year in Milwaukee, or outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in Pewaukee. The dates are there defined as, again, Monday, the 22nd of September through the 25th. This is a great event. Everybody that has attended this historically has said nothing but positive things about what they've got coming out of this user group meeting. So it is for all of our IBMI-based applications, LX, XA, and System 21. The reason why we do them together is because we share a lot of architecture. We all use IDF. We all use System-wide Workspace. We're all on the IBM I platform. IBM's a big sponsor. They have a track that's dedicated to things that IBM is doing to, to enable IT staffs to manage their applications, to manage their architecture. So IBM's got a dedicated track there, and we have dedicated tracks on LX, and we also have dedicated tracks around other things that Infor delivers, like IDF, right? So a lot of opportunity to learn, get educated, in some cases get hands-on with products, but probably most importantly, an opportunity to meet with your peers, right? Because the reality of it is you go to lunch or dinner or whatever that is, you're going to be sitting with people that are minimally on an IBM I running manufacturing application, and in a lot of cases the same application that you're running. So it gives you an opportunity to build a network, hear what people are doing, share ideas, create contacts, because again, Infor can present content all day long, but when you get content from a peer that has a similar business process as you or similar challenges to you, that can be even more beneficial than some of the things that we present from Infor. So encourage everybody to attend that event. It's a great event. And we will be doing a lot of content there that we'll be sharing, and hopefully we'll see you there in September. And with that, I guess we can open it up to questions. Hopefully everybody has been able to follow at this point.